Well, gentlemen, this episode of the show is going to be different from any other we've had before.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First, we aren't really going to have any Star Wars conversation in this episode.
Okay, that's definitely a first. What's the other reason?
Well, I feel like we can't ignore what happened at the Oscars last night. We need to have a serious discussion about what happened. It's not going to be joking around or poking fun.
Okay, yeah, this is going to be pretty different.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. We'll have some MoonKnight and some Halo conversation to help lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
I was sitting there the whole time like, dang, I'm sucking this
And
beer.
I was over there like, man, this is one of the best beers I've ever had.
So if you're listening to this, we have a competition in the house during the Oscars to see who's going to get most of the awards correctly. And for the first time in history, Sam and Nathan tied. Nathan usually runs away with it.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
So
But I technically, we broke the tiebreaker with me getting the best director and best picture category.
You got
There we
more
go.
significant categories.
He did get more significant categories. Welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by Ryan Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and that all of these myths speak to that story, and that is why we are going to talk about all that craziness at the Oscars, and then the first episode of Halo, and give a preview of MoonKnight. I am David. I am the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. And I am honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons. Samuel, you're talking about...
Yeah, well, we're going to catch you up to speed for the next Marvel show releasing tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I wish that was true for our recording.
Yeah, it's Friday. It's Monday night when we record, but of course you're listening to this on Tuesday.
Yes.
So yeah, it's tomorrow for that. What about you, BB Nate?
Well, Halo is out, and I have some thoughts on it.
That's ominous.
It is.
Yeah.
You, Dad?
Well, I've already mentioned it a couple times, but the Oscars, they were a huge night for Dune.
Ooh.
But that dust up between Will Smith and Chris Rock offers an important dad moment that I can't pass up.
I know you watch that and you're like, oh, it's ripe for the picking.
Well, and it felt like it's more had to be addressed
It
than
does.
anything else.
It really does.
Thank you for listening to this show. If this is the first time that you're listening to this show, we welcome you. I promise you that this episode is going to be different than what we normally do on this show. You can always go back and find some of those episodes, but we're going to have a lot of fun while we do it as well. Please follow the show on whatever social media you're listening to us on. Well, no, that you don't listen to it. Well, you can. You can listen to us.
I
do it.
clicked on like the Facebook one time and
You
it
can
kept
listen
playing.
to it
I
on
didn't know
Facebook.
that.
No, the
It's
whole
cool.
episodes are on
that's
Facebook
awesome.
now.
Yeah.
So you can listen directly on Facebook, but you can also follow the show on your podcast app, Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to us on. There's like 947 podcast apps in the app
I
stores.
swear there is.
For you listen to it, whichever one you're listening to it on, please follow or subscribe, whichever your thing is. Thank you for our sponsors. Our sponsors are the Heroes Journal. If you didn't listen to last Friday's interview episode with Nick and Kyle, where they talk about the Heroes Journal and the history of it, I encourage you to check it out. They are awesome. That's more of an amazing conversation than it is an ad for them. So have a lot of fun with that. This coming Friday, we're going to have the incomparable Kelly Knox. And she is an amazing Star Wars and Marvel author. And you can always count on her on Twitter to have some amazing, like Hall of Fame level dad jokes when it comes to Star Wars and
Really?
things. Even
That's
though she's not a dad. But I can't wait to interview her. We're going to be talking about her new book that's coming out in just a few weeks called Be More Kenobi. Life lessons and wisdom from Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm excited.
Great
about
character
that.
to choose.
Yeah.
I'm really, really honestly very pumped about having her on the show. But let's stop talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
There we go.
Got
Good
it
job.
right. We were on the fence a little bit about watching the Oscars this year, but our love for movies and our hope that Dune might win big caused us to go ahead and give it a shot. And then Chris Rock made a joke, and the whole show took a really weird turn.
Bulky religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
I was a little disappointed that we got to hear Amy Schumer give a stand-up routine instead of seeing actual awards given in a couple of spots.
Yeah,
Which I think
that was pretty disappointing.
It was. We had.
That's one of the, honestly, the expectations over the hosts were the worst.
Exactly.
And
that's kind of where we were like, do we really want to watch it this year or not? And so we just decided we'll just go with it. And then they had the whole, what was it? I forget Sykes. I forget her first name.
Wanda Sykes.
Wanda Sykes.
Yeah.
You had that whole thing with the Academy Museum. It was completely pointless. Show the actual awards.
That's a commercial for the people that are
Honestly,
behind the awards. So
I do think it'd be cool to go see that someday.
It would be. That would be like a dream. That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's start with some actual movie conversation before we get into what everybody's probably waiting for us to get to. Anyway, Dune was one of our favorite movies of 2021, and the Academy agreed. Mm-hmm. The film was nominated in 10 categories, including Best Picture, and it won in 6.
That's incredible. Including
original score, cinematography, sound, visual effects, production, design, and film editing. Samuel L. Hutt, while Dune was critically recognized, is it Dennis or Denny? Do we know?
I think it's Denis.
Everybody called him Denis in the entire
We'll call him Denny.
We're going to call him Denny from now on.
Denny's, right? Yes.
Denny, not Denny's. No, that's different. But they've got good pancakes. But not as good as International House of Pancakes. But that's not even as good as the original Pancake House. But we're getting distracted.
Which is IHOP, right?
No, the original Pancake House is different than IHOP.
I like
IHOP
Mom's
is
Pancakes.
International. I'm confused. All right, Denny Villeneuve was snubbed for Best Director, Sam.
Yeah.
100%.
How do you feel about that?
I
He
feel
wasn't
like,
even given a nomination.
I don't understand how you can nominate a movie for 10 categories and not include the director in one of those. None of that would have happened had the director not given the movie direction and vision. So it's really weird as to why they didn't decide to do that. I mean, none of the other directors were bad by any means. They were all, deserving of their nominations, but Dennis should have had a shot for what he put out. That movie was critically acclaimed. Obviously, he should get credit for it. So.
He should. I agree. I think that it was crazy when I didn't see him get nominated for Best Director. And I mean, even Timothée Chalamet, he didn't get nominated for Best Actor, and he had some fantastic scenes, like the one where they're in the tent, and he's freaking out. Fantastic acting. So I think that the Academy was just a little off on some of the decisions, but as always, they're a little off on some of the decisions. So like the nominations of The Power of the Dog in, I think, 11 categories, and it only won 1.
Do we even remember which one it won?
I think it was Best Director.
Did it win Best Director?
I think it won Best Director.
Conspiracy. No,
all right. BB Nate, you're the sound guy in the family.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the Academy awarding the score and sound awards off camera? I know we were joking a little bit about this, but seriously.
I was really disappointed when I heard they gave them off camera. That's just it's so sad, because those are some of the most important parts of what makes a film. I mean, you don't have a film without sound, and you don't have a good film without score. I mean, the score is insanely important. And right after I walked out of Dune, I'm like, Hunt should get nominated and win Best score for this movie, and he did, and it was great. I'm sad he wasn't even able to accept his
tell the story about
Oscar.
that. We talked a little bit about what happened after the award was given.
He wasn't there in LA to accept the award. He was in New Amsterdam, but it was around 2 a.m. and his daughter woke him up and went to a hotel bar and got him one of those fake Oscars and gave it to him at 2 a.m.
when she found out
that he won. So that was really awesime. I really liked that.
That was pretty cool.
That was really cool. But yeah, I was really disappointed to hear that they gave those out. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are other ones that they could have done off screen. I don't think they should do any of them off screen, really.
I agree.
At all. But I mean, score and sound are hugely important.
Yeah.
I mean, these people work just as hard as any of the other people who get the awards. It's just as important to them as any award. So putting them like on the back burner is kind of messed up. I mean, they deserve the support and they deserve their time to be able to accept it. So it's not a cool move for some mediocre comedy.
Yeah,
and mediocre is
I mean,
generous.
we were going to talk about the Chris Rock joke a little bit later, but there was a meme. I think we saw it on the way home from dinner tonight, or one of us mentioned it. One of you guys did.
Yeah,
about Amy Schumer. What was it exactly?
Babylon Bee.
Oh, okay.
It was like Amy Schumer terrified to learn that
you can now be slapped for bad jokes.
For bad jokes, right? Yeah,
that's funny. Not really. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. All right, this year added a couple of unusual twists to the broadcast by having the fan favorite scene and the fan favorite award.
Finally bringing in the fans.
Cool. I appreciate that
in the categories, which is great.
What's really interesting is that the Flash scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League won favorite scene, and Army of the Dead, also a Zack Snyder movie, won overall fan favorite. Now, both of these beat No Way Home. So, BB Nate, is this vindication for the Restore the Snyderverse crowd, or is this just more of a sign that the Twitterverse doesn't really matter for the future of Snyder's DCEU?
I think that it's a sign that the Snyderverse is still a thing, that there are still people campaigning for it constantly. I don't know. I mean, without the Twitter campaigns, without all of that, we would have never gotten the Snyder Cut. So it's always important. And I mean, those people with those Twitter hashtags spend their money to have banners flown over the Dolby Theater in LA during the Oscars do Restore the Snyderverse stuff. They had whole banners and stuff flying over the Dolby Theater during it for it. So I think that it's a sign that we're not giving up yet, and I don't think we ever will, if I'm going to be honest, because just there are a lot of people that are really passionate. But
Zack Snyder's going to be 112 years old.
Right.
Henry Cavill will be in a nursing home, an assisted living facility, and you'll still have the Restore the Snyderverse campaign going.
It'll never die. But I think that it was really interesting that Toby Emmerich was at the Oscars, and so he saw that. He saw how much the fans really love these movies, how much the fans really love Zack Snyder, and so it's a sign. And I know he's leaving Warner Media soon, but it's just a sign for the new people coming in too. So
that's a good point.
Now, Samuel, you're a little less biased about this topic than BB Nate. Just a little bit?
A little bit.
A lot. Bit. Do you think that what happened with these fan favorite awards, because let's just go ahead and say it. The reason that Army of the Dead won was because they wouldn't allow Zack Snyder's Justice League to get nominated. And so the Restore the Snyderverse people put all of their social media efforts behind Army of the Dead as a tribute or sign for whatever to Zack Snyder.
Yes, it was just a tribute to Zack. So.
Exactly. So do you, Samuel the Hutt, think that this helps or hurts the Snyderverse?
Honestly, I'm not sure either way. I feel like it helps. If nothing else, it's just a sign saying, hey, I mean, we've got some pull. You know, obviously they do. They caused this whole thing to happen. We know how powerful Twitter pushes are. Turbis and all of that
Turbis
came out
canon.
of Twitter.
This is true.
Twitter pushes too. So I think it definitely helps, and it's really, really cool to see that they in some way had an impact beyond just the making the movie. So I think there is credence to creating the Snyderverse, and with like what you said, Nate, with the new people coming in, it could very well happen. The people who are all pushing against it for whatever reason aren't going to be there anymore, and seeing that clearly the fans want it. I mean, they pushed for a movie that wasn't even just because it had that director's name on it, should show Warner Brothers, hey, these people, we want more. Please give us more. So I think it helps.
It almost seems foolish at this point to not allow them to happen. And financially, it's like it's like you are harming yourself financially, because you know that the moment that a Justice League 2 or whatever comes out, or the Man of Tomorrow or Ben Affleck's Batman, is that one that was potentially any of those come out, it's automatically going to be a major hit.
Yep.
If they want to put it on HBO Max, that's fine, but they're hurting themselves financially.
I mean, it's like if somebody walked up to you and handed you a pile of cash and said, all you got to do to take this is swallow some pride and admit you were wrong. Why would you not take the pile of money?
I think that's why the new people coming in is really going to help, because they have no skin in the game. They can just make their mark so early on making this happen that they can change the whole company.
All we can hope for is they just give Zach the green light and say, have at it,
All right. Well, obviously, the moment everyone is really talking about, you can't scroll through social media in any way without seeing about 47 memes about this.
I know, happened. They just keep coming.
They do. They happened when Chris Rock made a joke regarding Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. And Will Smith took enough offense that he walked up on stage, slapped Chris Rock, and told him to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. So
a little more tame.
Yeah, well, this is a family-friendly show. All right. Both of you guys, whoever wants to go first, just take it. Was Chris Rock's joke deserving of Will Smith's outrage?
Outrage?
Yes.
Okay. If we're...
not his what he did.
Okay.
His anger, his outrage regarding what was said.
I think so. I think it wasn't a right joke. I mean, making fun and poking fun at people is just kind of part of comedy. But the thing is he wasn't just, she didn't just shave her head to shave her head. We learned that she has alopecia. She can't help having a shaved head at that point. She's losing her hair. She can't control that. And that's a line where you don't cross that. It's just not something you do. So Will Smith had a right to be upset with what Chris said. Whether he knew it, what Chris knew about that or not, is a different, story. Because we didn't know that she had alopecia until we looked it up later, or found out about it later. But with that knowledge, yes, I think Will Smith had every right to be upset.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Chris Rock didn't make a tasteful joke. It was obviously not one cleared by his publicists or any of the people during the rehearsal, because he came up with it on the spot, is what we're learning. So it was improvised, and so it wasn't cleared, and it was a wrong joke. It didn't have a place in that field. I think that Will Smith had every right to be frustrated about it, because that's just something you don't do. And when it's your wife, that hits a little closer to home too.
Absolutely.
So I think that he had every right to be frustrated.
Okay. So now that we've kind of addressed the joke and Will Smith's right as a husband to be offended and angry by this joke, the question then comes down to, were Will Smith's actions the right way to deal with his outrage, his feelings?
No. There are a lot of other things he could have done to resolve the situation. He still could have gone up on stage, but vocally voiced his opinions and vocally voiced the wrong in it. He could have just stayed in his seat and said to not do that. He could have just waited until a commercial break and then approached Chris Rock and let him know that wasn't right, or anything. There are so many things that he could have done that were different from going up on stage and slapping him. I think that what happened was not respectful. It was an outrage, and honestly, it made Will Smith look worse because of it. And so, yeah.
No, what he did was absolutely too far and immature in a way. I think part of it is it's an overreaction, because if you watch the clip, he initially laughs at the joke, and then upon seeing his wife's reaction to it, not liking the joke, he gets frustrated, and it was probably an overcompensation on his part as well. Not excusing what he did by any means. like Nathan said, he should have handled it in a much more restrained manner, either coming up to Chris afterwards and explaining, or, I mean, really doing anything while the show's filming is immature and kind of almost selfish. He knows he's on live television in front of millions of people at home, and then all of Hollywood's most influential people for the most part. So doing anything that publicly is pretty selfish. So he should have dealt with it. He should have confronted Chris Rock by every means, but not in such a public way, and certainly not with violence in this case. That's just not going to help anything at this point.
Okay. Well, I think this is the moment that I've been waiting for. So let's have a dad moment here.
I am your father.
All right, from a husband and a father's perspective, I couldn't help but watch the aftermath of the slap and see a man who was broken. He sat in the audience trying to laugh and smile, but you can't watch Will Smith in those moments the rest of that show and not see a man that looks defeated. Mm-hmm. And then he gets up to make his acceptance speech, and he sounds like a man who desperately wants to have hope in his life, but he hasn't got any. He talks of love immediately after lashing out in anger. And in having a little space to think what through Will Smith must have been going through over the past few years, I can't help but believe that he is a man who was publicly humiliated by his own wife in front of millions of people, and he's living in a marriage that is the exact opposite of what the Bible and humanity's own experience tells us is right. He lives in what's called an open marriage, and I am of the conviction, I was going to say opinion, and that's not strong enough. I'm of the conviction that an open marriage isn't a marriage. It's the exact opposite of it. And Will feels the need to put on this brave face, to act like he's so enlightened, while every day he feels betrayed and publicly shamed. What Will Smith did was wrong. But we should spend less time looking at what happened on Sunday night at the Oscars and consider how his personal life set him on a course to become triggered by a tasteless but seemingly benign joke. Yes, Will Smith needs to take stock today, but it has a lot more to do with everything else that's going on in his life and in his family than it has to do with the overreaction to a stupid joke. And that's all I'm going to say about the Oscars now. All right. After all is said and done, I can't help but wonder if the tweet I saw Sunday night from Joseph Scrimshaw at Force Center Podcast isn't a bit prophetic. He said, well, it was a really fun way to watch the last live Oscars ever. So we'll see if that comes true. Let's talk about some clickbait that's literally clickbait, not just, crazy stories about Oscars and things like that. Epic Stream is claiming that Wolverine has been recast in the MCU.
Yeah, we've heard this one.
There's another Mandalorian spin-off secretly in production.
Really?
And Marvel doesn't want you to see the Thor Love and Thunder trailer.
Oh, they don't?
No, that's all next on Bad News.
This is not going to go the way you think.
All right, let's talk about dragons for a bit.
Ooh, like
dragons.
Smaug?
Like Smaug. No, different kinds of dragons. One of the really important things about the Hero's Journal is that it takes real life into consideration. A big part of that is this idea of dragons. These are those mythical beasts that come after you, trying to stop you on your journey. So, gentlemen, what are some of the dragons that you're facing on your quest?
Oh, for me, it sounds like a really weird and kind of silly one, but backstory, I'm a night owl, 100% a night owl. I can stay up late, no issues, but getting up early is an issue for me. And one of the things that has been a constant issue when I write down my threats in the morning, this is almost always on the list, it's staying up too late. Because a lot of the things I do to further my quest happen at the end of my day, reading my Bible, reading other books, exercising, things like that. And when I stay up too late, not necessarily doing like fun things like playing games, even just doing homework and stuff, it pushes it because I still have to get up early in the morning for school or now my internship. Woo! So, staying up too late hurts me bad. So it's really tough. That's one of those dragons I've been facing for a while.
Any dragons from you, BB Nate?
Dragons. I mean, since I don't have a quest yet, that's still in consideration. But I mean, of course, it's just me. It's my mind. It's the constant. It's the Tao. That's a big thing of it. And so, that's always I think I've put that as a threat every single day. And so that's a big thing of it. So I think that's one thing that you could always put there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've been dealing with a lot. We don't talk a lot about my medical situation on the show because it's really not relevant to anything we talk about on here, but it is a dragon. So we'll talk about that. 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I weighed 245 pounds. I was much bigger and much unhealthier. And I have fought diabetes for 14 years without having to take insulin. And then last week, the doctor and I had a meeting and the doctor said, it's time. So that was really discouraging for me. It really kind of has been messing with my head ever since I walked out of the doctor's office. And then, of course, just even having to give yourself a shot was like freaking me out for a while. I'm over it now, but it's not that big a deal. But just having to be on insulin now has really bothered me. And then in the midst of all of this, I get my birthday present. I get my monitor. My giant super 30-inch ultra wide monitor. We're even looking at it right now and using it for the recording. It's awesome. But I was getting it all set up on Saturday afternoon and really excited about everything. And then our podcast mixing board died in the process of all of this. And I'm super frustrated even right now as we're recording this because I still haven't gotten the sound where I wanted. I'm having problems. We're having static on our headphones. All of these little things are going on and these dragons are driving me nuts. And I'm really honestly, since Friday, I haven't even touched my journal with it. And that bothers me with it. So what do you guys, what are ways that we can come together and help each other when it comes to these dragons that we're facing?
I mean, always just, it's such a simple thing, but like talking to each other about it. And even just like a quick question like, hey, how you doing with X, whatever your insert dragon here. Can be a huge help. Just hey, how you doing? And an honest response. Say, hey, I'm just not doing great today or whatever. Just a little bit of encouragement helps. Just having somebody run that race in a way with you is a massive help.
Yeah, that's a cliche answer, but it's the right one. And sometimes the cliche ones can be the most truthful because it's, everybody uses them and it's what works. So yeah, just making sure you check up on people and not, just check up to check up and then leaving it at that. Make sure you're there to listen instead of just check a box.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me how something as simple as a daily productivity journal that's based on stories that we love can cause us, can provide a conversation starter about these types of things that we can even hear on this. I mean, it is about a journal, but the journal has what triggers this idea of these are things we're trying to do and accomplish. And we need to have, each other. And so it's easier to slay dragons when you're in a fellowship, like Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin, all of them. We want to invite you as listeners to join our little fellowship. You can go to theheroesjournal.co. Excuse me, I'm going to do that all over again. theheroesjournal.co/pages/Tatooine Sons.
Hyphen Sons.
No, not hyphen Sons. They've taken that out. I have my request. So it's just Tatooine Sons. Yeah. So theheroesjournal.co/pages/Tatooine Sons. Just find the link in the show notes and join us on our quest. Download your free copy of the first act and join our fellowship. Be sure to check out that episode we did last week with Nick and Kyle so you can learn a little bit more about this. And again, we'd love for you to join us on this journey.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
All right. Headline 1, Secret Mandalorian spinoff may already be in production. In a classic case of the clickbait website Who Cried Wolf, we apparently missed a major gaffe reported by Inside the Magic all the way back in January. The story goes that Ming-Na Wen, plays Fennec Shand in The Mandalorian, took to Twitter congratulating Katie Sackhoff for her new The Mandalorian spin-off series featuring Bo-Katan. Ming-Na Wen's tweet said, "Woohoo! Thrilled for you, Katie Sackhoff. Congrats, girl. Hashtag Bo-Katan. Hashtag Star Wars." And then she quickly deleted the tweets. So now Bespin Bulletin is reporting that this series is already in production.
All
right. So, not sure whether or not it's a real thing or not. But this headline, got me to click. But since it's an interesting story and it seems to be based somewhat in fact, I'm going to just go ahead and give it a clickbait level of 5.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
All right, Sam.
Marvel is actually holding the Thor 4 trailer hostage.
Wow.
How do you hold a trailer hostage?
However,
usually hold somebody
Marvel's
hostage
doing
in a trailer, or you could.
I mean, you could.
Yeah,
that got dark. All right. While this headline from Inside the Magic would suggest that there's some like sinister plot or even an internal battle over the release for the trailer of Thor: Love and Thunder, that's not exactly what the actual article lays out. In fact, all the article does is speculate when a trailer might or might not be released, along with reasons why. In short, they don't have any information about anything. So this gets a clickbait level 8.
Clickbait 8. And VB Nate.
Yes, MCU fans react to Pablo Schreiber's Wolverine casting revelation.
It's a revelation.
I didn't hear about this.
Me neither. One of the most important skills in writing a clickbait headline is being able to word it in just such a way that the headline proves true while suggesting something much more sensational. Now, this headline from epicstream.com is a great example of that. It suggests that Pablo Schreiber, who plays Master Chief in Paramount Plus's Halo series, which we'll get into a little bit later, has been revealed to be cast as Wolverine in the MCU. In fact, the revelation is only that Pablo has stated that he's had conversations with Marvel about this. Good job with the clickbait.
Yeah.
This gives it a level 8.
It's like you got to give him credit, even though we don't like it.
It's legit. It got me to click too.
Yeah.
So that's usually my test is when I read it, I'm like, do I want to click? And then do I not want to click at the same time? Because I know what it is.
Right.
That's what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Sam?
That's me.
It's you.
It's me. All right. With the release of Marvel's Moon Knight just one more moon away, we're going to go over everything you need to know going into this next series.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets. You're coming to us. Is as the footsteps of steps.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
You don't actually have to have seen any of the MCU to be able to follow this next series.
Yeah, kind of explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, the director himself has said that he's trying to keep it pretty distanced from the MCU as far as like bringing in other characters and stuff, and they don't even really talk about the blip or any of that. So it's really it's kind of just its own story. It's
in a lot of ways it could be an entry point for people to come back into Marvel. Honestly, if they aren't a part of it.
It's set
right
in
now.
London too, so it's not like there's been established stories.
Eternals
there.
is in London. I've heard people say that you probably should go back and watch Eternals before Moon Knight, but I don't think you will.
I don't think so. So I think it's pretty set as is. But anyway, let's get right into it. First thing you need to know about Moon Knight is probably his comic background, where he's got his start. First, I'm going to give thanks to The Ringer for helping this segment.
An awesome site, awesome podcast.
Yeah.
The Ringer Network is awesome.
Yeah, I use their site for pretty much the whole thing. So thank you for making my life easy. But this character was actually introduced back in 1975 in Werewolf by Night. And he was just a mercenary who had a thing for theatrics with the moon, and he was just pitted against the titular character, and it was about a 2-issue.
The werewolf.
Okay. Right. And that was about it for a while. And then in 1980...
So Moon Knight is as old as your dad.
Wow.
Huh. Interesting.
Maybe I'm Moon Knight.
No.
I could be. I wouldn't know it if I was.
That's true.
Because I would have disassociated.
I think we would know.
Personality disorder.
I think we would know.
Okay.
All right. Well, and then in 1980, he got his first solo comic run, at which point his backstory was expanded. And this is, I'm paraphrasing here from their website. The mercenary's new roots extend to the deserts of Egypt, where he dies at the hands of another mercenary and eventual nemesis, Raoul Bushman. I'm wondering if that name's going to show up in the series. After attempting to save an archaeologist at the dig site that their crew is about to ransack, but then Spectre is resurrected in the tomb of Khonshu. I looked up how to pronounce it. So I'm good now.
Khonshu.
The Egyptian moon god, and he awakens with a new purpose, borrowing a white cloak from the tomb to become the Fist of Khonshu, a knight for the vengeful god. Along with the new MoonKnight persona, Spectre also adopts a couple of other identities to help serve his new god and defend the innocent. Millionaire Stephen Grant and the cab driver Jake Lockley.
Now, we know Stephen Grant is Mr. Knight. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I will get into that here in a second. But
okay, so who's the character that we've been seeing in the trailers? The one that's British?
Mark
That
Spector.
is Stephen Grant, and they actually adjusted it a bit. He's not this millionaire that we've seen in the comics before. He is actually just this kind of your run-of-the-mill person who's just working at a museum. So they have changed that a bit, but that's the persona we're experiencing this through.
So they're taking away the Bruce Wayne element of Moon Knight.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's not his. Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But just based off of a little bit, we kind of covered his comic storyline a pretty good bit. But then what's interesting is eventually he didn't start off with dissociative identity disorder. Later on, his character morphed into one suffering from that. And his alter egos that we discussed, Stephen Grant and the cab driver and stuff, became different personalities along with MoonKnight. MoonKnight is actually a different personality as well, along with this is a much newer thing, Mr. Knight, which we've seen in some of he's wearing the suit and stuff.
Yeah, he's
it's really cool
looking. It's unreal.
In the comics, Mr. Knight is actually more of like a detective than anything.
Okay.
So less the beat 'em up and more the detective side of Batman. So it's kind of like they're taking the elements of Batman and splitting him apart, if you want to make that
splitting Batman's personality into making it Moon Knight.
Yeah, kind of
interesting.
Anyway.
Okay.
Now the whole dissociative identity disorder thing was actually handled pretty insensitively in the comics for a while, up until this one run. I don't remember whose run it was, but it was back in 2016 where they really handled the situation well and delved into it with some maturity in a way.
Which is just another kind of example of how, as mental illness has moved from being sort of just, this really like cliche stereotypical thing back in the 70s and the 80s and in the 90s, it's become, as mental illness has become more understood and more discussed, more talked about, it's become more important to start dealing with it in a much more sophisticated and nuanced way instead of this just, it's even a challenge in the Batman comics to some extent with Arkham Asylum and all of this. They've had to deal with mental illness that way as well with it.
Based off of this, do you think that obviously the dissociative identity disorder is a main point in this show, if you can tell that from the trailers, but do you think that they're going to handle this respectfully and tastefully, or what vibes do you get from it?
I'm sure they will. I don't think that they would have any reason not to. I think that it's such a big part, and I think the director knows that, and I think he wants to handle it correctly. And I don't think that the MCU would be too happy with them handling it wrong. I think that he's been hired to direct this series for a reason, and so I think that he'll do a great job with it. I really do.
I do agree. I think that they know that this is a sensitive issue and it should be handled effectively. And comic books have learned how to address issues much more sensitively, and the Marvel universe has made those attempts to do that as well. And I'm confident that this one will handle it in a fairly effective way. Some people will be frustrated with certain aspects of it, and there may be reason behind that because it's so hard to navigate these things, but in the end I think that they'll handle it well.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure if this will come into play at all in this series, but it was revealed in earlier comics that Mark grew up in a Jewish home, and after his parents were killed by a longtime family friend and rabbi who turned out to actually be a Nazi serial killer of Jews. And at this point, it's
so crazy. I know we talked about this back when the trailer came out, as we talked about this.
Yeah. But this is the event that caused a Mark's
in the comics.
Dissociative identity disorder to start. So we don't know if that's going to be the case in this series. We do know that the director has confirmed that he is Jewish. Mark Spector is Jewish, so they might go there with it. But to figure, I'll just put it in there because hey, what if it shows up in the series? But it is definitely
It's an interesting
different
origin
story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we kind of touched on this a little bit in the last segment, but there are a few differences to the comics, as there is with any MCU adaptation. Now, the series is staying fairly true to the character as a whole, but we're going to be experiencing it a little bit differently. One difference is that one of his identities, like we said, Stephen Grant, is not the eccentric millionaire. He's just a museum attendant, and we're going to be watching the series through Stephen's eyes as he learns about all his other personalities and what they've been up to.
So Stephen is your point of view character.
Yes.
And then you'll get Mr. Knight, you'll get Mark Spector eventually, hopefully. You'll get Moon Knight, obviously, through this, and we'll be watching this story unfold through Stephen Grant's perspective. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of important to have the everyman character in a story. We were watching Halo the other day. I'm not sure if you touched on this. I might be stepping on your toes here a little bit. But the insurgent is your everyman. Obviously, it's hard to relate to a battle-hardened superhero or super soldier, but just a kid, you can follow that. Mark's Stephen Grant, he's just a normal dude going to work his 9 to 5 and is wondering why he can't sleep. We can relate to that better. It'd be hard to relate to a millionaire, except they do it with Batman. But
that's just great.
But what's interesting? Do you think we see his third personality, the cab driver, the Jack character?
That might be a little thing at the end, but I don't think so. I don't think we see that as much. It's like they merged Stephen Grant and his character together, with the normal 9 to 5 working every day kind of character, and they just took the name. Because I mean, it would be weird for them to have that kind of a personality in there. I don't think it would work.
It'd be kind of fun just to see it pop up once in a while.
Yeah.
Like if,
like
he's in the
Easter
mirror
egg.
and he's one of the mirrors has a cabbie talking in a New York accent or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Now we like we said, we have to remember though that that's not his real identity or his original identity. I don't know how you say that, but his actual identity is Mark Spector, which we've seen in a few of the trailers. He's in like The Man in the Mirror or whatever. So that's important to remember. Now,
I feel like I should sing.
No, please don't.
The man in the mirror.
Hey,
sorry.
Don't step on my song.
I wasn't trying to, but it worked. So maybe I'll remember that for future. But now the villain we don't really know a whole lot about, and there's not even a whole lot about him in the comics. The name is Arthur Harrow, and he appeared back in the 1980s, and he served as little more than your run-of-the-mill mad scientist. Now, for this Disney Plus series, he's kind of morphed into more of like a religious zealot and the cult leader who the director, is it Ethan Hawke? He described him as being based off of David.
Well, Ethan Hawke is an actor.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, yeah.
You said director.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's the actor. Yeah.
The actor who plays Arthur Harrow has described him as being based off of David Koresh.
Yeah, the Branch Davidian cult. We talked about this at the trailer with it. I think that we're going to see that character actually merges with 2 or 3 other villains from the Moon Knight universe and becomes this sun god worshipping, like a villain or opposite of Moon Knight with it. That's a character in the comics. I think that's what we're going to see with it. So.
Yeah, no, we've gotten.
It's just,
I'm just hearing this and I'm just relating him to Spectre from DC Comics. I mean, the character, he's practically the same. Spectre was killed. The main character was killed, and he was eventually chosen by God to be his spirit of vengeance, and was resurrected and was put on the earth to exact judgment on those who deserved it. And I'm like,
so it's like a supernatural Punisher in the DC world.
Yes, but a lot cooler. Spectre. Okay. He also quotes Bible verses all the time too. It's really awesome. I love Spectre. He's really cool. But yeah, it's practically the same person. Just this one deals with an Egyptian god, and the other one deals with the real God.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Now, let's go into who's actually playing who. Now, obviously, Oscar Isaac, Poe Dameron.
Yeah.
He was in Dune.
He was.
He's playing Mark Spector and all the other people that come out of that. Ethan Hawke, we discussed, is the antagonist, Arthur Harrow. And then the Egyptian Palestinian actor May Kalamaui is Layla. Oh man, I should have screened these names.
I'm
glad I didn't get this part.
I can't pronounce it, so we'll have to wait for the show to come out.
Yeah, she's an archaeologist and adventurer from Spectre's past. Now, this was actually a character in the comics, but with under a different name. I think it was like Meredith or something like that. So they're bringing in that character, which will be interesting. What are y'all thoughts on that? Bringing in this character that is from his past, but not a past that this character Stephen Grant remembers.
It's going to be a little bit of a way to fill us in on all the stuff that happened before. It's going to be a great way. It's going to be, I have a feeling, a lot of exposition, but I think that it'll work well if they do it correctly. If you'll be getting the backstory, you'll be as confused, but you'll be learning more and more with Stephen and what's going on through her. She's going to be kind of the guiding light through it.
I like the idea, and I don't think we'll have as much exposition. What I think we'll get is the beginning of exposition that turns into flashbacks, and so we'll see Mark Spector as this this partner or whatever to the Layla El Fowley. I want to pronounce it correctly and I can't. And we'll see some of their exploits together as Stephen is learning about these things through his interactions with her. So I think that'll be a fun way of getting the backstory. I think you're right. That's what the point of it is. But I don't think you'll have a lot of conversation. I think you'll have a lot of flashbacks with that. So
do you guys ultimately think it's a good idea to go through the eyes of Stephen Grant for this storyline?
I do. It's somebody we can relate to. And so that makes it easier. Like you said, it's something we can understand, and we can feel as confused and as worried and everything with what's going on. I mean, you'd be freaked out too if you came home, wake up every morning wondering where you are. And so he's freaked out by it. He's chaining himself to the bed. He's putting sand around his bedpost so that he knows if he walked over it. I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, so we can understand and be as kind of insane as he is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it from that perspective. I think it'll be a fresh new way of doing it versus a linear story that starts off and we just keep seeing these things happen. You pick up in the middle of the story, you get confused along with Stephen Grant. You get answers as Stephen Grant is getting those answers. And as he's being surprised, you're being surprised. As he's being scared, you're being scared. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then lastly, F. Murray Abraham is the voice of the Egyptian god Khonshu. I hadn't heard of him.
I'm trying to remember the things that he's been in, but he's a pretty big actor, and he's been in some science fiction stuff. I think that he was actually in some Star Trek, like Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country or something like that.
Yeah, I looked it up. I hadn't seen anything he'd been in, but I did think I saw a couple of Star Trek titles. He looks familiar, but when I was looking at all the movies, I couldn't figure out like where I would have seen him. So it is interesting, but I'll be curious to see what his voice is as this Egyptian god. But yeah, well, Moon Knight is set to release on Disney Plus tomorrow. Yay! And it promises to be something different than anything we've gotten in the MCU before. Be sure to tune in and then listen to our next episode of the podcast where we share our thoughts on it.
Very nice. Excited about that.
Yes.
Is it time for some movie moments?
I think so.
It seems like the early reactions to Morbius are confirming why this film is delayed.
Yikes.
And the Batman was dethroned at the box office.
Not surprised.
Yeah, but man, that deleted Joker suit that they released, that's all next on Movie Moments.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
We're going to the movies again this Thursday
for the Thursday preview.
Yes, for Morbius.
We're going to see it.
We are, yes.
I'm excited to go to a movie.
Yeah, I'm excited to go to the movie theater.
The way you phrase that.
Yes. It is about a dangerously ill man with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others suffering his same fate. Dr. Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. What at first appears to be a radical success, a darkness inside him is unleashed and transforms this healer into a hunter.
Whoa.
Wow. Yes. The director is Daniel Espinosa. Yes. And the cast is Jared Leto, Tyrese Gibson, Matt Smith, and Michael Keaton. The studio is Sony, and it is rated PG-13 for intense sequences of violence, some frightening images, and brief, strong language.
And we're going to see it.
Yes, sir.
And we'll tell you what we think.
We'll be happy to go to a movie.
It was delayed since January, and I think we know why. All right.
Yes, there were no new trailers, but we got something better than a trailer, in my opinion. We got the deleted Joker scene from The Batman. Yeah, that was crazy. I was scrolling on, we were in Burger King, and I was scrolling on Facebook, and I saw that the Raw Lotta website was updated. The DC Comics and all that stuff, and the Batman Facebook page and everything was like teasing it, and it was with Joker. I'm like, all right, so I'll go there. And they had riddles, and I solved the 3 of them, and I saw that. I was like, they actually dropped the whole scene, and I was super excited.
And then we couldn't watch it because Sam had to go to work some college stuff.
So we had to wait until that night, and it was fantastic. I love Barry Keoghan as Joker. He did a fantastic job in this universe, and I cannot wait to hopefully see more of him.
Oh yeah, I mean, it sucked having to wait all day to watch it. I'm sorry I made you all wait so long, but I was waiting too. But it was so worth it. I mean, he from the opening line, I was sold with Joker saying it's getting close to our anniversary, isn't it, or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's something we haven't gotten with any of the other Jokers before because they haven't been around long enough to get to an anniversary.
Yes, and that's one of the key elements of Joker and Batman's relationship, and we haven't ever had that until now.
Yeah, and then his look, obviously everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, talk about that, BB, because you saw him in the first time we see the movie.
Yes.
You immediately began to compare him with something in the comics, right?
Yes, I compared him to Lee Bermejo's Joker from the Joker comic series that came out a few years ago.
When we saw it, the Tuesday preview IMAX special screening.
Right as I saw it, he was shadowed. I saw him for like 0.2 seconds. He's not on the screen all that long, and you can barely see it, but I'm like, that looks exactly like Lee Bermejo's Joker, at least a lot like it. And now that I see him more, I'm like, it's a mix between that and the Death of the Family Joker.
And didn't the concept art, didn't it reference Lee
Bermejo actually dropped a picture that he did for this Joker, and so it was fantastic. It was a great piece of art. He's an amazing artist, probably cool. One of our best comic artists this year.
I'll say it's just about the only Joker that's made me like uncomfortable to look at.
Cringy.
And kind of
like
I'm not scared of clowns, but if that clown came up to me in a dark alley, I'd be freaked out.
That isn't a clown. That's a demented serial killer with a smile on his face.
Well, that's true.
That now has a paperclip.
The director said that he's not Joker yet, so he's got to adopt that clown persona later.
He's not
working on
fully Joker. Yes, but for box office results this weekend, the Batman has been dethroned by The Lost City with a good take of 31 million.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. 34 million worldwide. The Batman's still strong, not surprising, with 20 million domestic and 672 million worldwide overall intake. And then this one, a bit of a shocker. I didn't even know it was coming out. I didn't even know they had a trailer for it, but it was RRR, Triple R. I don't know how
it's a Indian film, right?
It is a comedy, action, adventure, heist film, I think. Is
it like a Bollywood?
It is.
I think it is, yeah.
Really strange, but it came away with 9.5 million.
It was the third highest domestic this week, and that's its only take.
Yeah, that was his only take. So, kudos. Great job, y'all. That was impressive.
Why don't we keep this going?
Yes.
Nate, your segment's next. Go.
Yes, Halo is finally out, and as 3 guys who know next to nothing about the universe, it was an interesting watch for sure. So let's get into that.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Batman has no limits.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of always been interested in games, but now after watching this, I understand that the character's cool. Master Chief's is cool, but I like it. I like the universe that it's set in. And I know that it's different in the show than it is in the games, but yeah, it makes me very interested in playing the games.
No,
yeah.
I don't play video games.
Yeah, you don't play video games ever, so I'd be down to play it.
We just have to get it on
Jedi Fallen Order yet.
We'd have to just get it on the original Xbox. That's how old it is.
I'm sure they'll re-release it somehow.
They
soon.
did, but we don't have the console to support it. But Halo Episode 1. Now let's go with this first. What did we like? I guess I'll take this first. I really liked how quickly this episode moved for its length. It was an hour long, yet it never felt boring. There were no parts where I was just kind of falling asleep. It never dragged, and it kept me entertained, and it made me excited for the rest of the season. Very excited. So what did y'all like in this episode?
I mean, first off, I thought it was kind of cool whenever they would show the heads-up display for Master Chief, because I'm not familiar enough with the games, but I'm familiar enough with video games in general, and his HUD was exactly like what you would see in a video game, which was cool. I liked it. The little mini map, all of that.
The ammo count, everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like as if you were watching the game, which I think is a cool touch. Also, from what I've seen of Master Chief, they nailed his look. I mean, he looks like you rip him straight out of the video game, so that was cool. But you're right, Nathan. When I heard that the episode length was an hour, I was a little worried that it would be drawn out with some exposition. It moved from beginning to end. I thought it was great. And from some of the trailers, I was a little nervous about the effects, the visual effects. But upon watching it, it didn't feel like
they held up
cheesy at all. No, it was
really good for a TV show.
It was really well done effects. I mean, no Mandalorian, but you're
dealing with a smaller budget.
It was still really good. Yeah.
I really liked the fact that they drop you into the middle of this universe and this story, and they don't have any setup. You have to figure out what's going on all throughout this episode. I didn't know for the entire episode who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, who you think are the good guys and the bad guys. You're finding out that they're not. And you're trying to figure it all out from the beginning. There is so much more just from what we saw in the trailer, and so much we saw in our reaction to the trailer when we talked about it and kind of the backstory of Halo that I know is coming. But they didn't go in there and try to force all of that into this first episode to try to set this all up. All I knew is that the farther we went into this episode, the more invested I was into what was happening in this story. And that's what I appreciated about it.
Exactly. I agree. Now let's get into this. I'm not sure if this is going to be too much of a subject, but what did y'all not like? Honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of Dr. Halsey's character. I thought she was a little annoying and just kind of one-dimensional throughout the whole episode, and kind of just was... She just felt really off, in my opinion. I feel like
that could change.
That also,
though,
yes,
sure.
that could very well change, and then it could also just be a product of the writing more than anything. I know that she's a great actress. We saw her in Designated Survivor, and she did great in that. So,
oh yeah, she was the wife,
and she was in Truman Show.
She was in Truman Show. She did great in Truman Show as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's a great movie. But what did y'all like? Not like, if anything, really.
I mean, based off of what little knowledge I have, and honestly, this is kind of a credit to you. Your thoughts are patterned off of who you spend time with. I've my friend Tristan, he was huge into the Halo games, so he already knows more, and I've caught up a few things from him, and some of my friends at college are familiar with Halo as well, so I pick up a few things from that, and it's already, what little I've learned, influenced my thought process, which is kind of interesting. But just little things such as that weird kid leader of the Covenant. That's completely new. Could work. No problem with it. It's just weird. And then the more I've thought about it, the more I'm okay with it. But at first, Master Chief removing the helmet was I go, whoa. I can't.
Yeah, I knew that was a controversy as soon as it happened. I knew enough about Halo to know that was
because you've never seen his face in the games from what I've heard. He's just kind of this faceless character. Also, I know the voice is different, but I mean,
it works well.
We have no exposure to it, so we're not having to get used to it. So that was a little weird, but upon thinking about it more and more, the more I realized, okay, it makes sense as to why he had to do it. It makes sense in terms of a TV show as well. It'd be different. It's one thing for a video game. It's a whole nother thing for a TV show. So I think it works well. And I'm glad they didn't drag it out too far to where it's almost like a rehash of The Mandalorian or something too. I mean, we kind of all expected it to happen anyway. I'm glad they got it out of the way now. It's over. But I think, overall, it was a really solid episode. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, only thing I didn't really like was there were so many characters in the opening scenes, and that was such a busy series of scenes. There were a lot of characters in there. They all had really, really strong accents, and there was so much noise going on that it was really hard. It was a little hard to understand what they were saying, and I think that was really hard for me to get into the story at the beginning because I was struggling to understand what was happening in the conversations with it. And I also did feel like some of the CGI, especially in the opening scenes, some of the characters didn't look real to me.
The elite was pretty. They were pretty bad at some points, but overall the Spartans had either the effects of their suits were fantastic, and if they were CGI, it was hard to tell which was what. So that was really well done. And now, I guess what surprised us of this show, I honestly thought that the action in it was really good, really well done. The choreography and everything, it kept me on my toes. And I also liked the world building it had. And most of the characters were really interesting, and it set up a good series that I would be interested in. Now, what surprised y'all overall?
I mean, it was like I mentioned before, it was better effects than I thought it would be. And that was surprising. But also, it already has a more depth to the story than I thought it would. I mean, like you said, Dad, it drops you in the middle of a story, which I like that. You know, jumping in and then having to ramp up the story is kind of annoying. We're dropped into the middle of a war. There's rebels and there's the Empire in a way, which is actually kind of the good guys, but not really. We're not quite sure. Like you said, everything's got depth, and you can tell that there's a lot more to this world that we just haven't seen because we haven't gotten there yet. That's a sign of good world building. Like Star Wars, they reference little things here and there all the time that, you know, is explored decades later, but it adds to the world building. Same with Lord of the Rings. There's just tons of world building. So knowing that there's more to this universe that we haven't seen yet is already exciting enough. And then, I mean, I wasn't expecting to see other Spartans. They are all called Spartans, right? Yeah. Which I thought was cool. It kind of felt like, almost like Clone Force 99 a little bit.
Yeah, it did. Yes. You're right.
But it's another reference to video games. You've got classes in video games. You had your heavy, you had your sniper, you had your scout, you had your assault. And it was cool that they brought that in, but in a subtle and way that worked. So overall, I was just surprised about how much I enjoyed it, I guess is a good way to put it.
I did not see the twist coming at the end of the first episode where he basically goes rogue. I had no idea that was part of the story.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you guys know that was kind of the basis of the
I don't
story?
even know if that is a part of the story normally.
All I know is that was like, okay, now I'm intrigued. I want to see what happens with this.
And then the other Spartans being told to defend him, capture him, but defend him.
That makes Halsey a better character too.
That does that right there.
With it. So yeah, that was what surprised me the most.
I agree. Now, I guess rating of 1 to 10 weird artifacts. What did y'all think of the episode?
Crazy supernatural artifacts. I'll give it a 7.
Okay, you?
I was gonna give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll go with that too. It was.
I definitely want to see more.
Yes, I really enjoyed the episode overall, and I'm actually excited for the rest of the season and what is coming to unfold. Now, tune in to episode 2 this Thursday.
So it's a weekly release, huh?
It is. Yes.
Right. Very nice. All right, gentlemen. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, Nova MCU project is being developed with MoonKnight writer Sabir Pirzada.
Yeah.
All right. Which is cool. I saw this headline. I'm going to be honest. I thought it was clickbait at first, but upon learning that it is not clickbait, that is very exciting because that's a cool character.
I don't know much about Nova, so you guys have to fill me in with that.
He's part of the Nova Corps, if you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I figured that.
I know, anyway. Right? The Batman topples Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, and Justice League at the domestic box office.
Very nice.
Yes, it's about to topple Man of Steel if it hasn't already. Wow. Yes.
Very good. There's a new Star Wars book that's coming out. The story of Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian after Return of the Jedi. Searching for
that guy from
Ochi,
yes.
And it's going to change Luke Skywalker's story in a pretty canon-shaking way, including interaction with Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost.
All right, I might have to pick up this book.
Okay, that's cool.
Dad, you're just like, all right, I'm getting this.
And exposure to Exegol, which we kind of expected to happen, where he connects with Anakin's ghost, though, is on Tython, season 2 Mandalorian, where Baby Yoda does his Force time.
Interesting.
So we should be getting some Mandalorian content from that. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Friday's episode, Kelly Knox, Be More Kenobi. You're going to want to check her out. She's hilarious. I can't wait to hear her thoughts on how to live life with the wisdom and class and humor of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He does have class.
He does. With that, thank you again to our amazing sponsors, the Heroes Journal. Check out that link in the show tunes where you can...
Tunes?
The show tunes. Did I just say that?
Yes, you did.
Show notes.
The Oscars got to you.
I was the West Side Story thing from last night. Tonight. All right, Sadie. Show notes.
There we go.
That's it. And try not to use your mic anymore.
I was trying to get you to stop singing. It worked last
time. Both times. All right. Check out our Patreon page. We'd love for you to do that. There's a link for it in the show notes, not show tunes, the show notes as well. I'm just going to end this thing right now.
Show tunes include notes, though.
Thank you for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and of course, the show, it's only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you liked us that much, go ahead and like us on Facebook.
Please.
And join our Facebook discussion group.
That would be awesome.
Got lots of great memes and articles being shared there and cool people. And then follow us on Twitter to get in on all of the action. And you can keep up to date with everything we've got going on over there at TatooineSons.com.
That's right. Don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode or any episode. And then give us a review. We haven't gotten a review in a long time, so give us some reviews.
Sad.
If you're listening to this and you aren't giving us a review, our feelings are getting hurt and we need some ego stroking. So please do that. It would be awesome. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. That'd be awesome. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.
Yep, yep.